Okay. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education business meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Time is now 7:07 p.m. Apologies for delayed start here. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. And if we could all stand for pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with me this evening, I have Janine Randolph, Kara Bakey, Sherry McCready Pritchett, Jasmine Cressy. Virtually, I have Ashley Goulias and Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig. Also, I have Dr. Alexandra Estrella and some of her cabinet members here this evening. And with that, I will transfer the meeting over to Kara Bakey for a spotlight.
Thank you, Chairwoman Carpio. So we have 3 spotlights tonight. And in this first spotlight, I would like to call up Rashima Norfleet, Director of Community Incentives with Discovering Amistad.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is,
So just because of for the public, you would have to sit in the chair.
oh, I'm sorry.
And-
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Rishma Norfleet, and I work for Discovering Amistad as the Director of Community Initiatives. It is a privilege to be with you all today. So the purpose of why I'm here, we did a program with Discovering Amistad with partnership with Norwalk Schools. And we brought the Amistad ship to here, and we served about 845 students with the middle school. And we had such an amazing time. We went into the classroom and they also came aboard of the ship. And so we did have a short program where we presented some plaques to all those that made this initiative happen. Unfortunately, we was not able to meet with Dr. Estrella and Mr. Pennington. And so we wanted just to make some time to just let you know how much we appreciate you. This story is very important. This is a Connecticut story. All students should know about this story. This story is about courage, it's about perseverance, and it's about just believing in yourself. And this story made history. And so, you know, we have a privilege to go all around Connecticut into the schools and tell the students about this story that happened about a group of Africans that were kidnapped, but how the abolitionists and the Africans were able to work together as a team. And so today we just wanted to present these plaques to you and just let you know how much we appreciate you and your work that you are doing, and hope that we continue to that this will continue to happen because we are very dedicated and passionate about this work. And so the plaque says, for your extraordinary efforts, which enabled the Amistad to dock in Norwalk for the 2023 Voyage for Freedom, the Board of Directors, Discovering Amistad, presents this award to Dr. Alexandra Estrella, and then Dr. Robert Pennington. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Can I get a picture on my phone as well, please?
Okay.
If you give me your phone.
Or should I?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That is so nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Make sure that's
it.
okay. Yeah, thank you so much.
Are you coming again this year? The kids loved it.
Oh, yes, that's the plan. We're hoping to bring, right now, the ship is being preserved. We're doing some work to her. And so she should be ready in a couple of months, but we would definitely love to bring the ship right back to Norwalk.
That would be great.
It's a passion and desire of us to do this work. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Very special. Moving on to our next spotlight. The Norwalk Board of Education is proud to recognize National School Counseling Week, which was celebrated from February 3rd to February 7th. This year's theme was School Counseling, Helping Students Thrive. Norwalk Public Schools dedicated school counselors guide, support, and inspire our students every day, from helping students stay on track academically to preparing them for college and career success and providing the support they need to thrive. Our counselors are an essential part of our school community. One of our school counselors continues to go above and beyond her everyday duties of the school counselor position to also serve as the liaison between Norwalk High School and the Norwalk Mentor Program. School counselor Shonda Baskin was recently awarded the Liaison of the Year award by the Norwalk Mentor Program at its annual celebration. The Norwalk Mentor Program, part of the Human Services Council, honored Baskin for her unwavering dedication to the Norwalk Mentor Program. Every year, Baskin helps coordinate two special events, the Fall Welcome Back Breakfast and the End of the Year Ice Cream Social. Norwalk High School has the most mentor-mentee matches in the district. Congratulations, Shonda Baskin.
Thank you, everyone.
Muzzles have, gentlemen.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, before you go, I was there at that,
The breakfast?
no, the meeting, where they talked about it at night.
Oh, the
Oh,
annual
I was
event.
Yes.
coming from a game at Norwalk High in sweatpants, yeah. Yes, I do, I run the concession stands too for the basketball games.
But I just want to say thank you. Just the energy and the love that you have for the children is definitely shows.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, I love it, I love the mentor program, so, I love, yeah, Norwalk schools, everything is, it's really good. The mentees, I connect with them and the mentors, it's a great program.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
All right, there's a second part to National School Counseling Week. School counselors are master's level trained and licensed educators equipped with the skills, knowledge, and expertise to support and develop students' academic career, social, emotional well-being. They are compassionate people who focus on others, often above themselves. They are problem solvers who think outside of the box for scholar-oriented solutions. School counselors work very hard for their scholars and families and often take their work home with them in both their hearts and their minds. Here are a few words to best describe our amazing school counseling teams. Compassionate, encouraging, insightful, mentor, resourceful. On behalf of the Norwalk Board of Education, we want to thank all of our amazing school counselors across the district. We appreciate your hard work and dedication. And our last spotlight of the evening is Black History Month, February 2025. The Norwalk Board of Education is proud to recognize Black History Month at Norwalk Public Schools. Throughout the month, members of our community, schools, educators, and students are encouraged to honor the accomplishments of Black Americans and their important contributions throughout history. On February 27th, NPS will host the 3rd annual district-wide Black History and Heritage Festival Hands That Built the Nation, celebrating the National Black History Month theme, African Americans in Labor. The festival will be held from 5:45 to 8 p.m. at Norwalk High School. The evening will feature incredible performances from students across the district that highlight the significant role Black people have played in the workforce throughout history. We will also celebrate our local Black business community in Norwalk on Black Wall Street. In the 1920s, historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the organization he founded raised awareness of the contributions of Black Americans. The celebration was held in February to coincide with the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and abolitionist Frederick Douglass. The observance was expanded in 1976 to a month-long celebration as part of the nation's bicentennial. Since then, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month, including this year. Every year, NPS classrooms across the district highlight Black History Month by learning about historical figures, inventors, educators, and civil rights leaders. Educators highlight books written by Black American authors and poets and incorporate videos and other resources into everyday lessons. The NPS curriculum department also dedicated its entire reading calendar for February to Black History Month. Book suggestions include titles featuring prolific Black authors and stories illustrating the amazing accomplishments of Black figures in history. By declaring February Black History Month, the Board of Education encourages all schools to share in activities and celebrations honoring generations of Black Americans who have positively influenced our community and country.
You. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments. I don't know if anyone has signed up or if there's anybody online that would like to say something, please raise your hand.
Okay, and our public comment is from Dave Cahill. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. My name is David Cahill of 14 Broadview Terrace, and I'm a proud parent of 2 NPS students. And I've attended these meetings since this latest budget crisis began and have been inspired by our community's passion in fighting for the funding our schools so desperately need. I'm here to phrase some of those previous points in more stark terms to help drive them home, specifically for the operational budget. There are a large number of us who are extremely dissatisfied with the Board of Ed, our superintendent, and the negotiation process. We all know how we got here. Pandemic special grants were not wound down and future budgets were irresponsibly built on these temporary funds. 2 years ago, when that money ran out, the superintendent presented the first budget crisis, requesting a large increase, and after many hearings, only part of it was granted. Not what we wanted, but we chalked it up to painful adjustments that needed to happen. At the time, I started reading about what sounded like frivolous spending, but I didn't follow up. Now here we are, again, 2 years later. The superintendent and the board asks for a 9.7% increase, knowing the historical approval rate is much lower. The mayor and council warn that property tax hikes are the only solution, scaring us away from a compromise. And the alternative? Cuts that eliminate staff and force schools to share nurses and vice principals? This is the best you can do? Where's your creativity? Where's your leadership? So I'm here pleading with you to go back to the table and scrutinize every line in the proposed operational budget for waste. Offer multiple tiered proposals that show us true compromise and that prioritizes school-based budgets and in-school staff. Because like last time, I'm hearing about more wasteful spending. How many assistant administrators do we really need that the previous superintendent did not need to be successful? How much does special events like convocation cost, and would cutting back pay the salary of one para? How much do hired consultants and event speakers cost, and would eliminating them pay for one nurse? And in the spirit of compromise, I'll be asking the mayor and common council how many counselors and interventionists would be saved if we don't purchase a $1.1 million tiny plot of land near Matthews Park. Let's add up all the waste and see what and who can be saved. And what's the worst part about this mess? While you play budget chicken, our kids pay the price. So please figure this out, or frankly, you're going to lose my vote and many people like me. And I want to say I'm a lifelong Democrat who has supported many of you before, but this failure is unacceptable. Thank you for your time.
One else?
No.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, superintendent's report. So Dr. Estrella.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as we continue through the budget process, we just want to provide an update on the capital budget and where we are. So I'm going to invite Mr. Asmani to join us to provide us a brief update on our original ask and where we are at this point of the process.
Well, good evening, board, superintendent. Just wanted to spend some time and just give you an update on where we are with the capital budget. As you know, this is there's a process and various phases in the budget. Back in December, you approved a total capital budget of $7.4 million. After that approval, we forwarded the capital budget to the city and it was reviewed in conjunction with some of the other capital requests district-wide. The mayor and the CFO made their initial recommendation on the capital budget, and their recommendation was 6.9 million, slightly less than the 7.4 million that we had requested. And so in doing so, we had to make some adjustments to our request. The first adjustment we made was enhancements to school security. Our initial request was 554,000, that is decreased to 327. This really relates to our purchasing of AI equipment just to allow us more intelligence in making sure that our facilities are safe. And so what we did, the adjustments we made here was adjusting the number of views that we purchased. But we believe that for the next fiscal year, we will be rolling over that additional request that wasn't able to be funded this fiscal year. The other change we made was a replacement to student and high school computers. Our initial request was 779,000. Our revised request is now 559. And in working with the digital learning team and department, what we've done here is we've done an assessment of the student needs and we made some adjustments. I kind of extended the lifespan of some of the equipment to make these work. And then the final adjustments we made had to do with the science curriculum, where the initial request was 250,000, that was revised to 200,000. So other than those three capital requests, all of the other requests so far have been approved at the level that was requested. These requests are now being viewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They only review whether these projects align with the plan of conservation and development, and they all do. So we anticipate a favorable review from that commission, and then it'll come back to the mayor's office for a final recommendation before going to the Common Council later this month with final approval of first Common Council meeting in May. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the capital budget that you may have.
It's just good that it really didn't take too big of a hit. I'm glad to see that we're going to pretty much be able to get what we need. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as promised, we want to provide an update around our attendance data. As you know, we've been carefully monitoring attendance, particularly over the past several weeks to make sure that we don't have a regression of a lot of the progress that we have already made around student attendance. So I wanted to provide the board a quick update of where we are at this point and some of the efforts that we continue to put forward to make sure that kids are present. So Ms. Fayose is going to provide us with that.
Thank you, Dr. Estrella. Thank you, board, and thank you for giving me the time. This is just always an overview in terms of one of the goals that we set is that we will always try to maintain our chronic absenteeism at the state level, where the state level's chronic absenteeism is or lower. That was the goal that we set. It's a robust goal because obviously the demographics in our district are very different than the demographics in the state. Our high needs population is higher. We know that those high need populations actually suffer greater chronic absenteeism. So to have a goal to maintain at the state level is actually pretty high. As of maybe a week ago, we were at 18.9%. The state is at 17.1%. So we're very close to the state level chronic absenteeism data. We hope to stay there, but as we know, as of late, there's been a little bit more of an up and down. You will see Norwalk versus the state again, but what you are seeing here is our high needs population versus the all student versus non-high needs. So again, the high needs population always suffers greater absenteeism for various reasons. You will actually notice that our high needs population is lower in terms of their chronic absenteeism than the state. So for a long time, we were trending with our high needs students as having greater daily average attendance than the state. And this is what we keep marking because as of January, we have seen some changes, and that's what I'll talk to you about in a little bit. So this is what we are seeing. We are seeing that our MLL students or students that qualify for language services are now actually having a greater absenteeism rate. We started to track their attendance from January 20th forward. And the reason why it's because after January 20th is when we started to get a lot of scares and a lot of families reporting being afraid because of their immigration status. And so then we thought that that was a good place for us to actually have like a marker as far as how are students doing prior to January 20th and how are students doing post January 20th. As you can see, before January 20th, we actually were closing the gap in terms of the chronic absenteeism. This is actually average daily attendance, which is slightly different data point, but they were attending school at the same rate as students that were non-MLLs. The gap was actually really small. It was less than a 2% gap, and that there had been a lot of work done by the schools to actually close the gap between the two. Post January 20th, you will see that their average daily attendance has dropped by about 5 percentage points. And you guys have been with us this whole time, and you see like how 1 percentage point to gain 1 percentage point, how much work it is and how much effort it takes. So to see this drop just in a matter of a few weeks, it's actually pretty concerning. We have been tracking it. One of the questions when I presented this to Dr. Estrella that she had asked is this something that maybe happened last January at this time? Like, is this just something that's a pattern? And no, last January at this time, we did not see a drop with our MLL students. Their average daily attendance in December, actually looked it up. Their average daily attendance in December was 89%. In January, it became 90%, and in February, it became 92%. So this is not something that's like seasonal that we would see a trend of students actually lowering their attendance during this time of year. We actually think that there's a large correlation between what is happening politically and our students coming to school. We have had some days where students are back to their 89, 88% average daily attendance. However, there are moments when things come up on social media or when things are more heightened in the news where we will see the drop the following day. So we have been following those patterns, but this obviously will impact our chronic absenteeism data at some point. But as of now, it's still too early because it's only been about 3 weeks since we started tracking this data.
Okay.
Any questions on this before I move forward? Okay. But just wanted you to know that we've been paying attention to it. What we have here are other urban districts versus Norwalk in the blue versus the state. So we still track better than other urban districts. I think that the last time that I saw, there was only one other urban district that was tracking at the same average daily attendance and chronic absenteeism data as we were. So for a city of our size and for the demographics that we have, we've been making really great progress on our average daily attendance and in reducing chronic absenteeism, which is part of the Connecticut report card for districts. And so then we've been tracking it, religiously since 2019, 2020, when we came back to school full time. And then here you will see my grade band. And the reason why that's important is because the green gray band represents our high schools, and the high school students are the hardest students to actually get to come to school. There's a variety of reasons for that, but we know that attendance for the younger students are really dependent upon the family. So there's a lot of family intervention at the elementary schools. There's a lot of family intervention at the middle schools. At the high school, the intervention is more at the child, right? So then you're going to school by yourself. You're making some choices about what you want to do with your life. And so then this is when school counselors become pivotal and other programs become pivotal at the high schools. We have been doing better. As you could see, our chronic absenteeism for high school has been reduced. So anytime you see that number go down, you could see that some of the impacts at the high school are working, but the high school is still experiencing higher absenteeism than the middle schools and the elementary schools. Really big shout out to our middle schools for being on par with the elementary schools, because middle school is not easy. And that's when young people start to actually develop some of those attendance habits. Again, this is just a view. Kindergarten tends to be a grade that has really high absenteeism. That has traditionally been an issue, if you could see as far back as 2018. The reason why, it's because sometimes there's this misconception that you don't have to start school legally until the age of 6, and kindergarten starts at the age of 5. So some parents sometimes will interpret that as kind of like school is still optional at that point. That's a misconception though, because once you enroll, you've made the commitment that your child is starting. But that's something that we've been working on with our kindergarten parents. There is some data that's missing from 2013, 2014. It's a glitch from RISE, so I couldn't actually get it to work, but I could get that to you. But we're tracking better this year than we were last year for kindergarten. The other grades, you will see that we're starting to go back down to pre-pandemic numbers. But again, when you look at the older kids, the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th and 12th grade, you will see that they are much higher than the younger grades, but you will see that in 9th grade, there's been some fluctuation, but there's been some progress. In 10th grade, definitely a lot of progress in 11th grade, and a lot of progress in 12th grade. So we've been working with RISE and other community partners to see like what is happening in the 9th grade. And this is just a moment in time, right? So this is right now in 9th grade, what could be happening that's causing some more of that absenteeism. Our MLL students, this pulls ELL because that's the way that the RISE network group students, but it's MLL. So our MLL students versus non-MLL students, the gap has increased quite tremendously. Our non-MLL students only have a 16.8% chronic absenteeism versus our students that receive language services are tracking right now at 25.6%. And then we also keep an eye out for students that receive specialized learning services versus students that don't. Some of these students are duly identified, so they belong in both categories. But our students that receive specialized services are at 25.2 versus their peers that don't receive any services are at 17.5. So that gap still persists, and it's something that we work with not just the MLL team, but the whole school, because it's not just that this tier of students, it has to be a culture shift that we make sure that these students feel included, that the school culture is ensuring that the students know also that they would be supported, and you have to engage the community. It's really a robust approach. And then by ethnicity, you will see that our Latino students are actually leading in chronic absenteeism. Again, this slide that I started with, or the second slide, shows that this has been more persistent as of late. Give you a moment to look at the various schools. Our elementary schools are actually doing pretty well. Your eye may go down to the South Norwalk School, but again, all of the attendance tracks. It's a largely Latino population. It's been a school that has been particularly impacted by what has happened as of recent. Our middle schools continue to improve. And it's of this moment in time. So it'll change by the time I come here again next month. And then our high schools, we do have some really big celebrations. P-TECH has just really done an awesome job this year to reduce their chronic absenteeism. You will see at the end of last year, they were at 21.5. This year, they're at 15.3. And I think actually prior to this presentation, they were lower than that. So they've made a lot of good traction. Norwalk High has seen some reductions. Brian McMahon actually has seen a 5% reduction. Brian McMahon, one of their equity goals is to actually reduce absenteeism amongst the Latino community. So they've created like affinity groups. They have done like a lot of things to actually make sure that that community support is there for our MLL students and our Latino students. Because not all our MLLs are Latino, and then not all our Latino students are MLL. So it's been sort of this community embracing of making sure that everyone is included. And then I do have student behavior incident data. It's up to you if you would like me to continue, or if you wanted to just talk about attendance for now.
You can just go through the overarching.
Okay. So our student behavior or student incident data is still good news. We have reduced our incidents year to date by 12%. So we continue to reduce. That's obviously a testament to the schools and what they have done for school culture and climate. We have also, Dr. Estrella implemented 2 years ago a suspension or a system that actually targeted subjective suspensions. That's not what we called it. We just called it a suspension supervisor. And then we have a suspension site that students actually go to, so that when you're suspended, you're not actually staying at home for 3 days or for 5 days, but you actually go somewhere to receive a proper education, and it's staffed by a certified teacher. But what we have been able to see is that the incidents that we used to call subjective incidents, so incidents of like insubordination is one. Because what is insubordination to me, or talking back to me, may be different than somebody else. A lot of those have reduced, and that was part of like our equity work to make sure that we are treating students that may look differently the same in terms of their incident, whether it is that they're being, argumentative or challenging, but how do you de-escalate and how do we reduce some of that data? That's been really, really a positive trend. And we've seen a lot of schools actually come down quite a bit. This is too small for you to see the schools, but I can give you the hard copy. But you could see that some schools have seen a slight increase. That increase has actually been in students fighting. So it's students on students. And we have 3 schools that have seen that as an increase. And I'll explain why. We have Norwalk High, Rowan, and the other school was Ponis. But it's the way that it's being reported. So the way that the information is pulled, you could use 3 different codes. And they happen to be actually pulling in one code that gets reported in a certain way. Overall, student incidences have actually gone down. So it's the data is a little bit misleading. And we do have a plan with Ryan Harold to actually go to all 3 schools to talk about de-escalation with those teachers, and then just talk about what it could be happening amongst the students that's causing a rift. Here you will see that that at this point of the year, we do see more students getting suspended, or have more incidences compared to other urban districts. So this was something that actually was a little bit alarming to us in terms of our data. And so this is something that Ryan and I actually talked about. We have seen reductions, but we are still trending higher than other districts. And I wanted to present that to you guys because the work still continues. Another piece of data and this is the number of incidents. So this is an important piece. The number of incidents that Black students have experienced has reduced by 16%. Okay, however, they're still more likely to get suspended than reduced, their likelihood increases. Okay, so I want to present to you the real data, and this is the real data, that in spite of all of our efforts, the likelihood of a Black student getting suspended is still more likely than their counterparts. We do have some celebrations, students receiving specialized services, has been reduced. The number of their incidents has reduced by 19%. And this was something that we saw as problematic last year. Robert Peddington's team and my team have worked really hard to make sure that students' goals reflect any supports that could be causing them to, either have incidents in school or be avoidant or whatever it is. So we have seen some reductions in students that receive specialized services in the number of incidents that they have experienced this year. So with that celebration, I will entertain any questions.
So the kindergartner group, so you noted that parents don't think, I'm just wondering, so they're actually registered, but for whatever reason, sometimes they just don't have them come to school because they don't really think that.
I don't, this is all anecdotal.
Yeah.
Because we've never actually surveyed parents to ask, like, why don't you bring your children to school? We traditionally, kindergarten has always experienced high absenteeism. One of the things that the state has named as a possibility as to why that happens, it's because kindergarten sometimes is quote unquote optional. But once you register, you've made the commitment to come, right? But I think that sometimes it doesn't translate that way because it's not unique to us. It's across the state. We've done a lot of education on the importance of kindergarten, because especially those foundational skills that you get in kindergarten. So it could actually be detrimental if your child is chronically absent. We do a lot of I don't know, who still has children in district, but we do a lot of mailings that show you where your child's attendance is in comparison to their peer. But in kindergarten, if everybody else is absent, it's ineffective. But you know, so I think that like we do a lot of sort of like trying to get parents educated on the importance of kindergarten and the importance of actually of school readiness by grade 3, which is like, you know, a major initiative for us and for the state. But yeah, kindergarten is a really challenging one. Seniors also for different reasons, but it tends to be those two bookends tend to have the greater absenteeism.
And you talked about affinity group. What does that typically look like? Is that like a peer group?
Yeah, or just having, making sure that if you have clubs at a school, that you are including clubs that would host interests that are particular to a culture. You know, and you could do that for anybody. You could do that for LGBT community. You could do that, you know, but that's what we aim for. We aim to make sure that whatever school culture pieces exist, that they're representative of the student body that is there. And Norwalk High has actually done, I apologize, Brian McMahon has actually put in a lot of efforts in just also communicating like their daily average attendance. It's just making attendance matter, you know, like for lack of better words, just bringing awareness to students. But one of the things that I was really impressed by, it's not just the efforts to engage families and engage students by, you know, going to their house, but also just like, how is it that they create spaces where students feel safe at school? And by safe, I don't mean just like physically safe, but feel like I want to stay after school because I'm joining this club, or there's other people that speak my language are also going to stay after school and we're just gonna like kick it, you know? So it's more like that.
And my final question is, why do we think that our suspension rates are higher than other urban districts? I mean, what are they doing that may be different than what we're doing?
That's a
If we
great.
don't know, maybe we could look at that.
Yes, I think Dr. Richard Lemons actually at one point was helping us with finding districts that actually have lower suspension rates. The more I look at the data, I actually think it's the way we're reporting our data. So the EdSite data. So we have 3 categories for fighting. And it's 3 different numbers. They pull using 2 numbers and not using 1 number. When we looked at all 3 numbers for ours, our data looked lower than what EdSite is actually pulling. And so then when we asked schools, like, why are you using this code as compared to this code? So one of them is battery, another one is fighting, and another one is physical altercation. So how do you decide? Right? And then what Ryan was suggesting is that the reason why they're deciding is because they are like the number of days that they want to suspend a student, they're using that to correlate to the code. So the school is coding it, like if it's 3 days, they're going with like the higher number. And that's the number that gets reported. But you really could use any of the 3 codes. So there is some fault in the data. So I just, you know, I don't know if it's just being pulled differently for other schools and they're using the physical altercation one is the one that doesn't get pulled from the state.
Interesting.
Do you think that the district could benefit, like, you know, retraining the staff of like how to properly
It's really
codes to use?
Oh, yeah. With that is a technical change that we can address immediately. But we also just have to address like what is happening with the students that at different moments in time. And a lot of the fights that occur start off campus. And that was something that we talked to Lamont a lot about, like, how is it that as a community do we come together and actually address like what is happening in the community that ends up trickling into the schools? Like, so a lot of, you know, people live together and it, you know, sometimes it's like whole families like not getting along and it spills into the schools. it used to be at one point that a lot of it was on social media, but now we're just really seeing it like it's beyond even social media. It really is just outside conflicts that end up in everyone's in school together, so.
Yeah.
What about all of the success that Dr. Lewis has had at Honus Ridge with bringing their absenteeism down? I mean, he's just won Principal of the Year.
Yes,
Are we like looking to that, what they've been doing there and trying to maybe like
yes.
borrow and educate other
Yeah, the middle
leaders,
schools
leaders?
have actually
Done really
really,
well.
yeah, the middle schools actually have improved so greatly because I think that the model that he put in place is it's very easy to replicate. Which, so he actually identifies the students that had the highest absenteeism and they do home visits over the summer.
Yeah.
And so then over the summer, a team goes out and then they really just started to track the data in a way that was more proactive. So rather than allowing a child to become chronically absent, they would get them before, yeah. And the school has just really bought into it, but the other middle schools have been really competitive with Honus at this
Well, I
point.
remember they had
Yeah.
that competition.
Yes,
Yeah, which I think everybody had a lot of fun doing. Are they doing anything like that again? Do we know, or any other incentives?
maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I can find out. Yeah, I can find out.
Any other questions from the board?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So this hopefully just gives the board just a glimpse in terms of attendance. We're gonna continue to monitor. We're also like tracking when we have to do a late start to the school day as well as misinformation spreading to the community. Those have had daily impacts on our attendance. And particularly when we have to make a call where the school day starts later, we wind up taking a big dip in our attendance. So we're carefully monitoring that as well. And hoping that misinformation doesn't continue to spread in the community and creating dips in our attendance, because we want to make sure that our kids are present and in school.
And it will, and we just have to just continue like we are to offer those supports, because I can only assume that it's gonna continue.
Correct.
Right, I mean, that's, what does it say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, I mean. Hopefully that won't happen, but, you know.
So that concludes the superintendent report, and we'll keep you updated around the budget as we continue to follow along. I know the Common Council today will be setting the cap for the city, and that will give us an indication of more or less where we stand in terms of our planning for fiscal year 26. I'm really excited also of the possibility and talking to Senator Duff this week, us getting additional funding to support our special education. I think it's, if the governor approves it and everything moves forward at the state level, we're talking about approximately 800,000 plus additional dollars for us to mitigate some of the additional costs that we are experiencing with special education. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully that will help in some ways.
That is wonderful news.
I'll turn it over back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so action items. Before I read them all off, is there, one of them is approval of minutes. Was everybody able to read those? Any changes, concerns? Are we good? Okay, so if we can approve the approval of personnel, approval of budget transfers, and approval of minutes. I need a motion.
So
Janine, seconded by Sherry. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hands. Thank you.
Ashley?
Ashley, thank you, Ashley. Next section, I will read off all the titles together. If there's, please wait till the end. If there's questions, we can have, the team answer any questions before we move a vote on these. So we're gonna have approval of 2025-2026 program of study. The approval of final plans, specifications, and professional cost estimate for state project 103-0268 CV Fox Run Elementary School asbestos floor tile abatement and replacement of floor tile. The approval of the joint use agreement between NPS and Recreation and Parks. The approval to accept the Cranberry Elementary School new project, state project 103-0252N as complete. And the approval of policy 6010, equitable identification of gifted and talented students. Anyone have any questions on any of these items?
Make comments? Can I make comments?
Sure.
So I really enjoyed reading the program of study. It was very cohesive, robust, really very interesting to read the program of study that we have for our kids to engage in. Very impressive. So should I go through all of them?
You have the floor.
Since you, on the program of study, anybody else has anything? I'm sorry to interject. One thing I wanna say before the board moves forward with a motion to approve or not. We're asking for the board to approve this version. We might be coming back towards the end of the school year because there's some adjustments that we wanna make to better support multilingual learners and students receiving specialized services that I think are critical to continuing the advancement around programming that we have already started. As you know, a few years ago, we made some significant modifications because the way the program of study was set up was setting kids to graduate on a 5-year track versus a 4-year track. And we made some intentional moves to address that problem. There's still a lot of work to be done. And we want to take the next few months to work on those elements a little bit further. So we might be bringing the program of study back to you with some modifications. So I just want to say that before you go into approval.
Thank you. Any questions on the other topics?
I was gonna say that.
Yes, sure, sorry.
I was gonna say that it's really good to see the agreement that NPS will have with Park and Rec. I think that came out of the efficiency study,
Yes.
right? In terms of trying to realize some efficiencies working together. It's good that it's all spelled out. I don't think that that's ever been the case, as far as I know, so that everybody knows specifically what they can and cannot do and whose responsibility. So that's really, I'm happy to support that. And of course, good to see that we're all finished with Cranberry, long time coming with that. And also finally, just to say that I'm glad that we are voting on a policy relative to the identification for students and gifted and talented. For such a long time, children of color, Black students were excluded from that program. And so I'm glad to see that we are putting in place different opportunities for them to be identified to be in these courses, because it starts in elementary school. If they're not identified in elementary school, typically it's not going to happen after that. So happy to see that, Joe. I'm all done, Diana.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? We good? Ashley, you're good? Thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, so motion to approve all of the above that I mentioned prior altogether. So moved, Kara, seconded by Sherry. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you, that's unanimous. And next item on the agenda is monthly financial reports. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Ralph, man of many talents. So you do have the financials in front of you, and so what I would like to do is really tonight just focus on the general fund. You have the grant fund and the food services fund, but those are trending where we would anticipate, and I gave a detailed report at the finance committee meeting. So as far as the general fund is concerned, and this is looking at year-to-date January, we are 58% into the year. Year to date, we've spent 54% of the total general fund budget. So I'll just walk through these items to just give you a highlight. As far as salaries and benefits, year over year, we're at 6.3% compared to where we were last year. On a positive note, we are noticing lower vacancies this year compared to last year. And so that is also contributing to why we're seeing higher salaries expenses this year relative to last year. The challenge with that is obviously in prior years, we've kind of banked on those salary savings to make up for other areas, specifically special education. We know for 2 years now, we've kind of under budgeted that line. And therefore this year, this will somewhat reduce our flexibility to do that. So we're monitoring this closely, and we will, I think by the end of, in April, we'll have a better idea of where we're anticipating to end the year. Benefits, this is as a result, if you recall this year, when we ended last year, we had some surplus in the health insurance account, and therefore we're transferring less this year. And so we anticipate that this year's budget, if you look at the actual from last year at 38 million, we had budgeted 35 million this year. So it is less, and therefore we expect that to trend at that 16% rate. Professional and technical services, these services include things like our custodial contract, our maintenance agreements, our security services. These are services that we have outside entities provide for us, and therefore professional services, right now, it is at about 52%, which is consistent with where it would be last year. Property services, again, these are services in service of our buildings. So property services include things like our utilities and those types of things. And again, property services are at 60%, even though it's a little bit higher, but some of these are contracts, so we front load the contractual expenses. Supplies and materials are really supplies and materials for various academics within our school buildings. Other services, sorry, I skipped one. Other services, primarily, these are student services. Included in that, the major driver is our out-of-district tuition, our student transportation, and our special ed expenses. And therefore, that is a driver. And I said before, we had under budgeted in this area, and that's why you see that right now we're at about 70% of the budget, even though we're only halfway through. So this is one of those areas that as we get to the end of the year, we will be doing transfers into this account. And we're hopeful that we will end the year with sufficient savings in other areas. But as we've mentioned before, if for some reason we're not able to, this is something that we may need to go to the city for a special appropriation, which we had shared at the beginning when we approved this budget. And then the other items, equipment and other projects, the various equipments that we purchased throughout the year, those are all trending where we'd anticipate those to be. And then the transfer to food services account, as I said before, we are this year again beginning transferring funds from the general fund into a food services account. And this year we anticipate we budgeted $500,000, but we're projecting closer to $1 million just on how that's trending. And therefore we will be bringing this back to you again. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you. Thank you.
Next item is committee representative reports. Anybody want to do any committee reports? I know that Ashley had an update for us.
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to just share a quick note as the library liaison. The library held 2 successful multicultural events on Sunday, a Lunar New Year celebration and a Black History Month reading celebration and craft. And the library would also just like folks to know that there are red cards with information for immigrants available in multiple languages, as well as family preparedness plans, pre-printed in 4 different languages, but they will print in any language that folks need information printed in. So just a quick report from the library.
Thank you. Any other reports? Tara?
I have something on facilities. So earlier this month, several of us got to go and tour the new 7.0 school, hard hats and all, and it was really exciting. All of the steel is up for the structure. It is encased, so it was relatively warm with the heaters they were blasting. But we got to do a complete walkthrough of all the floors. We got to see the staircase, which if you've seen any of the renderings of what this beautiful enormous staircase at the entrance with this enormous atrium is, you know, it's going to be stunning. But yeah, it was several of us board members and common council members as well. The good news is that we're currently on track, on budget, on time, and we should get a real affirmative report and confirmation on that from Alan Lowe in April. So very exciting stuff.
Very exciting. Could I just add to that a little bit? It was, as you said, thrilling to walk through. One of the bits of information that the architects or the workers there could share was that there will be a lot of natural light coming in. Even though it's a two-story in many places, there will be natural light coming into the media center, into the classrooms. And I thought that was really wonderful for a large edifice the size that it is.
Agreed.
So it was very, yeah.
So, thank you. Okay. Yes.
I do want to say one more thing. I apologize for coming in late just from the other meeting. I'm wondering if it has been mentioned about the meetings that Superintendent Estrella has organized for those concerned with the immigration rules. I want to share that in attending, I was able to get information that I could share with friends of mine, and that I was very impressed with the straightforward and helpful hints to navigate this very difficult time. So I appreciate that, Superintendent Estrella.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next item is board member announcements. This is where the community gets to know us on a personal level. Is there anybody that has any news or events or anything coming up that they'd like to share?
Yeah, we've got the celebration Thursday night
Mm-hmm.
over at Norwalk High. Excited for that. This is the 3rd year, right?
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that. So hopefully everybody will attend. It looks like it's going to be amazing.
Yes.
The communication document that we got over I guess it was last weekend, was very impressive. And there was like a peek. I saw there was an interview that you did with Ms. Prezi did with a student, which was very nice.
Yes.
I enjoyed that.
Great, thank you. And last item on the agenda for this evening, for the record, Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig is here in person, so she will be joining us. We are heading to executive session, discussion with legal counsel regarding pending claims and litigation. We will be inviting Dr. Alexandra Estrella and Assistant Superintendent Sandra Ayos to join us. Motion to go into executive session.
And Kimberly,
You have to.
Oh, and Kimberly
Oh,
invited. I can invite.
and Attorney Kimberly for First Carolina.
Motion.
Thank you, Kara, seconded by Mary Ellen. Great.
You gotta take it out.
All right. We are back from executive session. Thank you, everyone. I believe that's the last item on our agenda this evening. And any motion to adjourn? Jasmine, seconded by Mary Ellen. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.